Hi, it's Tom Panos here and welcome to my October video blog brought to you by our good friends Campaign Track. And today we've got a great segment for you. We're going to go through a lot of information. We're going to talk to you about the Get More Listings model, the Tom Panos Get More Listings. That's got to be the thing that keeps people up at night in real estate across Australia and New Zealand the most, is how do I get more listings? We're going to talk about that model. We're going to talk about how to rock up as a specialist to a listing presentation and be a problem solver, not just be liked. We're going to also cover during this video blog the importance of having $1 million agent mindset. So what we've done is we've been able to study what is it that people that write $1 million in gross commission income are thinking. What is the inner mind? What is the winner's mind? We're going to talk about that. We're also going to spend time talking to you about the power of habit. First, you make your habits, then your habits make you. And we're going to talk to you about the latest research that shows that we as human beings are generally doing things without knowing we're doing them. And we're going to talk about creating some world-class rituals into our lives. We're also going to look at what's happening in this marketplace. And what's happening in this marketplace is this. There is an abundance of listings in most parts of Australia on the market. And I'm seeing the potential that we're going to have the market shift a little bit where buyers have got choice. So I'm going to talk to you about going ugly early. And what I mean by that is speaking to vendors early and telling them what they need to hear, not what they'd like to hear. So let's kick it off in October. Okay, so let's talk about getting more listings. I've got to say, this is the one characteristic the best agents I know in the country have. They've got this chase mentality that they're always on the hunt to get listings. So I'm going to show you the model. There are two models in real estate to get listings. The first one is the attraction business model. With attraction, what you basically have is an agent that's got lots of marketing. They've got lots of print, lots of digital, lots of video, signboards, they're everywhere. And what's happening is they're attracting and getting the attention of other prospective vendors who want to put their property on the market. That is the law of attraction. You get in life more of what you already have. And people are very attracted to people that are already successful. So the law of attraction is the model that you see with most $1 million agents. They've got a lot of stock, so they get stock. There's only one issue. Every seven-figure agent was not once a seven-figure agent. In fact, I've got to tell you, every winner was once a beginner, which is that they started off with the chase model. And I'm going to spend a bit of time talking a little bit about the chase model, because the chase model, quite the opposite to the attraction model, is when you're chasing, you're always pushing out. You're doing a lot of what I call prospecting. Some people call it cold calling, business development. Everyone's got a word for it. But essentially what's doing is that you are out talking to people, meeting strangers, sometimes interrupting strangers that don't want to talk to you. I always like to remind people, don't worry about rejection. When someone rejects you, it's about them, not about you. Learn to live with that feeling. It's an important factor for success in real estate. So when we talk about the chase model, when you're new in real estate and developing yourself in a marketplace, you can't rely on lots of listings with marketing from listings. So what you've got to do is you've got to go out there and become the hunter in the marketplace. And I'm going to describe to you the Tom Panos 4-stage prospecting model when you're at this level of your career. Number one, what you've got to do is define a target market area. Some people call it a farm area, but select an area. And this will be your area. And the reason I say define an area, it is far easier to become a rock star and an attraction agent and the agent and specialist of choice in a defined area of up to 2,000 homes than what it is to try and be that expert of 40,000 homes. So define a marketplace that you're going to operate in. Here's a couple of clues. Pick a marketplace that's got a lot of turnover, because turnover times commission will tell you how much dollars are in that marketplace. A very simple exercise for you to do is to use RP data to go in there and pick an area and see how many properties have transacted there in the last 3 years. Don't pick a 6-month period or a year, because it's not long enough. What you want to do is average it out over 3 years and see what is the turnover rate in that marketplace. The next thing you do is, after you've defined the area that you want to be the specialist in, what you do is you work out what is going to be your method of contact. That's step number 2. So we know your area. Now you're going to define how you're going to be contacting those people. Step number 3 is, what will you give these people? What will you say to these people? What value will you provide? And that is a very important bit of the actual 4-part process, because what you're giving these people in this marketplace is going to determine whether they want to keep talking to you and how they're going to position you in their minds. The problem that I see with a lot of real estate agent marketing is what they're doing is they're giving vendors stuff that impress the agent, not stuff that impress the vendor. So I think you've got to make the shift and say, how do I become a value-added provider? How do I show more, do more, give more? What can I give these people that they highly value? Here's a tip, here's a clue. The biggest asset that most of these people own is their family homes. So one of the things you can do is give them what I call an updated CMA every 3 to 6 months. This is something that they value. Another report you can give them is you can let them know of every transaction that has happened the previous month, the address, what it sold for, and this becomes part of your value-added information. So it's really important that you start being seen as the go-to person in that marketplace. Now, don't be concerned if you have not sold those properties yourself. All you want to be is a curator of information. All you want to do is to become the commentator, the thought leader in that marketplace that provides that information. So that's number 3. Number 4, consistency. Have a stay in touch strategy to be consistent with these people. So that's what you will do in the first 2 to 3 years, so you can actually totally dominate your market share. That is the 4-part prospecting method when you're in the chase model. The good news is that as slowly as you start creating raving fans here and get to be known as the agent of choice, and you start getting 10, 20, 30%, 40% market share, you will start picking up listings from other areas as well. And then what you'll start doing is you'll be picking up listings through what I call smart prospecting, not cold prospecting. And without doubt, please listen very carefully now. I'm going to give you the one dialogue, the one script that will provide more listing presentations than anyone that I know. Here it is. When people are coming through your open for inspections every weekend, when you follow up to ask them what they thought of the property, how it compared to what they're looking for, and got some feedback, always finish up with this question. By the way, are you currently researching buying or selling? Let's repeat it in a different way. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you came through 27 Smith Street. Can I ask you, are you upgrading or downgrading at this time? Are you researching buying or selling at this time? This is a very great question to ask to enable more listing presentations. I want to ask you a question. Are you a problem solver, or do you just rock up as a desperate, needy salesperson? Because let me tell you, If you show up as a desperate, needy salesperson, they're going to treat you like one. Alternatively, if you show up as a specialist, they will treat you like a specialist. What do we know about the new world? The new world is about rocking up and knowing your stuff. The new world is about going in there and not winning the business because you're the cheapest, but winning the business because you went in there and you flipped the game inside out. You destroyed this game that these vendors wanted to play. Vendors, what they want to do is they want to call in 3 agents, look at their fees, look at their marketing, and say, okay, you're all pretty much the same. Who's the cheapest? And what I'm saying is, be the disruptor in the marketplace. Go in there and say, no, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, this is not about selecting someone to sell your house. In fact, what we're going to do today is show you that the marketplace is good enough that your home can be sold by yourself, can be sold by a receptionist, can be sold by anyone. Our job as a specialist is to get you what I call the hidden 5-10% in the marketplace. So what I'm going to describe to you now is that what real good agents do is they go to a listing presentation, and what they do is they're able to create a problem that the vendor didn't even know existed, and then actually come up with a solution to that problem. That's what a specialist does. And without doubt, to me, the biggest problem that a vendor may have by listing with the wrong agent is that they will undersell their property by up to 10%. So I think the dialogue is this: Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, by the way, let me tell you, the marketplace is pretty hot. You can sell your property by yourself. That is not our role. This is the value of your property, 100%. Our job here is to actually get you a 10% premium. That is our job. And we have a 3-step process to do it. In fact, I love the dialogue. It's the process, not the promise of a price that will have you sold for top dollar. Can I explain the process? And this is how it goes. Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, part number 1 in the process is we must find the must-have buyer. The must-have buyer is the buyer that must have your home. You see, not every buyer is equal. Some buyers are worth more money than others. And I love using stories because stories sell and facts tell. So be a great storyteller. In fact, I'm going to put it to you. This is how powerful a story is. I'm sure if you're watching this, you've watched a movie before, and I'm sure no matter how strong, how hard you are, how much of a cynic, I'm sure there's been one film in your life that has left you with a tear. And I've got to tell you that movies can sell us a feeling. Think about it. People cry at a movie, yet they know it's not real. They know the actor they've watched has actually played other roles that year. But it still creates a tear in our eye. And that's because stories sell. Become a great storyteller at a listing presentation. You see, when you tell a good story, what you do is the person listening to the story ends up being in the story and they get emotionally connected. And that's what you want to do with your presentations. You want to get emotion, a bond and energy with a person you're speaking to. So the must-have buyer is best defined by a story. And I think a great story to talk about is if you see they've got kids, say, listen, you know, if I had a book that had just been published that said how to blitz your year 12 exam and get into university, and it's a $30 book. And what actually happens is that your daughter comes to you 1 week before her final exam and says, Mum, Dad, I want to buy this book. It's $30. You'd go off and do what most parents would and say, of course, let's go get it. And you walk into a bookstore and you realise that they don't have it in there. It's run out. The shop assistant said, sorry, we sold out yesterday. It's a hot seller. You go into another bookstore and they say the same thing. So you come to the realisation that you're not going to get a copy of this book. This $30 book that your daughter wanted, you can't get. She gets emotional. As you're driving home, you stop at one other bookstore. And at this bookstore, you ask the assistant, do you have a copy of this book? And the assistant says, let's go and check. They go, look at the shelf, and there it is. There's a copy of the book. You're excited. Your daughter says, thank God. You're all happy. You go to pay for it, and the shop assistant says, that'll be $49.95. I'm sure you'd agree, like most people on this planet, they'd buy the book, even though it was a $30 book. The point I'm making is that's the buyer we're looking for when we're selling real estate. And I reckon that a good piece of dialogue after you've told that story to a vendor is say, our job is to get you the $49.95 buyer on your home. That's the must-have buyer. That's part one of the strategy. Part two of the strategy is, you know what? Just imagine that we've got another buyer that wants the book as well. Just imagine we're at the bookstore and we're about to pay for the book and someone walks in with their daughter that also wants the book. All of a sudden you've got two people wanting the book. What we do know is that when two people want something, it pushes the price up. In fact, great dialogue, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, competition is what drives share prices up. Competition is what breaks records at the Olympic Games. And let me tell you, competition, which is part two of the process, is what gets record prices in real estate. So competition, that's part two. Part number three is marketing. That's the three-step process. And I think what you've got to do is articulate to vendors that when they're investing in marketing, $5,000 or $7,000 or $3,000, they're actually not buying advertising. What they're buying is the vision of this, the $49.95 buyer. And become a good storyteller, because the only reason someone's going to give you $1 is they believe the thing that they get back is worth more than $1. Remember that. People pay you a commission and marketing, but it is value that they get back. Improve the value and you will be able to get more marketing and more fees. I'm just going to quickly just describe how you actually show the marketing proposition. And I think one of the best pieces of dialogue to move into marketing with a vendor is, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, if I could show you how to swap $5,000 to make $50,000, would you be interested? Or another way of putting it is, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, what do you prefer? Do you want me to give you a marketing program that's going to make you happy, or do you want me to give you a marketing program that's going to get you the highest price? And marketing is very simple. It's a fishing exercise. It's no different to John West. I talked about it last video. John West tuna goes in, puts a big net out into the ocean, pulls out all the tuna, and then rejects 95% of them. And that's what we do in real estate. We go out there with a big net, pull out every buyer in the marketplace, and then reject 95% because they're not the must-have buyers. And the way that we actually go about this process is very interesting. So what we do is we actually go onto a lot of the web portals. So, you know, things like realestate.com, and in some marketplaces, Domain, your own agent website. But what you'll find is the majority of the buyers in the marketplace will come from websites. But what we clearly know is that they're not all the buyers, and what we clearly know is that they're not necessarily the best buyers. And that's why we actually do other things in marketing. And you'll see that, you know, you'll go off and do a signboard, and you'll have it in print media. Yes, I'm biased. I come from a print media organisation, but what I can tell you is that we clearly know that when you've got your offline and your online, inline, good piece of dialogue to use with vendors, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, it's really important that we make sure that our offline marketing and our online marketing is inline. We'd hate to distort the market by confusing it. So essentially what we clearly know is that print gets us passive aspirational buyers. Print also attracts an older buyer, and older buyers in Australia are the wealthiest people in the country. So you do want to be getting that marketplace. Of course, your database, brochures, video. And I think a really good bit of dialogue is, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, this is how we get 100% of the buyers. What I can't tell you is where the best buyer is going to come from. So what we know is we can clearly sell a property by putting it on realestate.com. We can clearly sell a property by putting it in a newspaper. We can sell a property by putting up a signboard. We can sell a property by just putting it in our database. But if we want to sell a property and we want to sell it well, we'll do all those things and we'll do them well. We'll get great marketing done. We'll use, companies like who's presenting this video, of course, Campaign Track, who are articulate and incredible at the way that they go around producing their marketing, their signboards, their brochures, their videos, all the stuff that they do. So what we're talking about is what a good real estate agent does is their marketing base, And what they do is they basically take a home out to the market the way McDonald's take a hamburger to the market. It's really interesting. It's not the best product that wins in the marketplace, it's the best marketed product that wins in the marketplace. And Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, that's what we want to do. We want to outmarket the competition. So I want to explain to you that when you rock up to a listing presentation, you've got to be able to tell a story, you've got to be able to show the value proposition, and the value proposition we spoke about is that you're going to get that 10% premium by finding the must-have buyer, using competition and having marketing to actually go out there and get that result. So I urge you, rock up as a specialist, they'll treat you like one. Rock up as a desperate, needy agent, I'll treat you like one as well. Success is an inside job. Things get better when you get better. Tell vendors what they need to hear, not what they'd like to hear. And you've got to start that process right from day one. Training is empty without courage and action. I was auctioning on the weekend and 2 properties sold for close to $200,000 over reserve each. And to me, that was a memory, a reminder that there are opportunities to have schemes in place that once you beat that number, you are on an accelerated fee. So let me show you how you can execute this.